just in case, if, since there could be people who might not be too familiar with the GCF, I will start with giving you a very quick snapshot of the Green Climate Fund. And then I'll start with the mission. Basically, GCF, our legal definition, is an operating entity of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change and Financial Mechanism. And we've been set up to help developing countries to take ambitious climate actions and also to help finance climate change mitigation and adaptation projects in developing countries. And while we do that, of course, we hope to create as many sustainable development benefits along the way. A little history. So we are very new. So we were established again by UNFCCC in 2010. But that was more of a political announcement by the UNFCCC. So beginning 2011, we established the governing instrument. And then the first board meeting was held in 2012. We usually have 3 to 4 board meetings every year. And now we have 12 board members from developed countries and 12 from developing countries. And we have one member from Morocco serving as an advisor to one of our board members. In 2014, we managed to mobilize around USD 10 billion in total, which was pledged for our initial resource mobilization. And with this commitment, we started approving projects beginning in 2015. And in 2019, where we are now, we have 102 projects totaling $5 billion commitment from the GCF. And 48 projects are now implementation. And we have 84 accredited entities, which I'll share more with you in a minute. And we have managed to reach out to 100+ countries through funding proposal as well as a readiness project. So GCF vision, one of our key principles is country-driven. So we always have to make sure that whatever we finance in line with the country's priorities and strategies. And for example, we won't be able to finance any projects without having a non-objection letter from the countries. So it's extremely important to engage with the countries as early as possible. And we are climate fund. Although we do want to serve sustainable development goals of UN, our focus is on climate. And the rest, again, like I said in the beginning, we try to create impact as a co-benefit, such as a job creation and gender equality. We are supposed to be very innovative and risk-taking, and this is why very renowned institutions, they want to work with us because we can de-risk the projects on their behalf. And we are also strive to strike the balance between the mitigation and adaptation. So one of our mandate is to provide at least 50% of GCF financing to adaptation projects, especially for Africa, least developed countries, and small island developing states. And one of our mandates is also to catalyze private finance. And this is why the private sector facility, the division to which I belong, was created since its foundation. And like I said, we are to support the country readiness and also to promote more direct access entities, meaning the local institutions. And of course, we always strive to identify and finance transformative and paradigm shifting projects. So GCF resources, like I said, to support finance both mitigation and adaptation projects, and we always try to find a geographical balance, but with a focus more on seeds and LDCs in Africa, like I said. And we have provided around 100 that can be used to conduct like a scoping study, also to develop like environmental social management framework, and also to develop funding proposal. And we prioritize giving project preparation facility to direct access entities. This is the overall estimated impact of the GCF project. So if you count all the mitigation projects, The estimation is that we can expect to reduce about 1.5 billion tons of CO2, maybe over the next 20 years. And when it comes to adaptation, we estimate that we can serve probably 276 million beneficiaries across the globe. And we managed to secure about 70% of our adaptation funding to least developed countries, seeds, and Africa. And if you look at the private sector portfolio, so out of 5 billion total portfolio, we have about 2.1 billion dedicated to private sector projects, which is expected to leverage about 6.2 billion co-financing from the private sector. So how to work with the GCF? So GCF is a very unique institution because we do not provide the direct financing to projects and programs, but we do so through accredited entities. So accredited entities, they are the one responsible for identifying and financing projects on our behalf. And we can provide alongside the accredited entity grants, loans, guarantees, and equity for climate change projects. So we have 84 accredited entities. And in fact, Morocco is actually one of the most successful countries in terms of accessing the GCF funding because they have already 3 accredited entities, including CDG Capital, ADA, and also Attijari Wafa Bank. And also the International Development Finance Club, we have 9 of them who are already accredited to the GCF, which include IFD, and again, CDG Capital, as well as like Korea Development Bank, KfW, etc. And we hope to have more IDFC members accredited to GCF to foster closer collaboration between the two groups. And yesterday, we actually signed a statement of partnership with IDFC to, again, foster a closer collaboration between the two groups. So when we look at the project, when we assess and review the projects, these are the main criteria that we use. So one is the impact potential, because like I said, we are a climate fund, and we have to make sure that with the, if it's a mitigation, that there is a significant amount of a carbon emissions reduction. If it's an adaptation, then we look at how many beneficiaries then we can reach out to. Paradigm shift potential is really about making the project more replicable and scalable. And the third one is probably most related to the objective of this session today, is to maximize the sustainable development potential, such as gender equality, job creations, etc. Fourth and fifth criterion is about, again, the country ownership, and also to prioritize those countries that are in more need of our support. And finally, efficiency and effectiveness. This is where we look at like a leverage co-financing ratios, and also to look at the cost of reducing 1 ton of CO2. So like I said, we have a dedicated private sector facility, which also makes GCF very unique, because not many climate funds out there have dedicated private sector division. And there was a very strong request when GCF was set up to have this division as kind of a private sector arm of these institutions. And our PSF mandate, again, is to catalyze the private sector climate finance by providing de-risking instruments and also the concessional funding. So we aim to provide like an anchor role in order to achieve those goals. So let me share with you some of the examples, case studies. In Africa, you can see a lot of Moroccan examples for obvious reasons. And case studies, I try to bring both public sector and private sector present, the case studies, but I have to admit that I'm not too familiar with the public sector transactions. So I'll try to share as much information as I can. I may not have all the answers when you have questions. So this is the projects we have with the ADA, the Agency for Agricultural Development of Morocco. This is a grant project where GCF will be providing around $40 million US. And this is really to help Morocco to develop more argan trees. So this could be actually the first time where the argan plantation will be done on a large-scale basis, which in turn will sequestrate CO2 emissions. And of course, there is a very strong gender component because many of the organ farmers are women. I know we have Patrick from DBSA, so we are working very hard to make this happen. And this is the first green bank model that we are trying to scale up and replicate across Africa, and we are trying to do it first with the DBSA. So basically, we are trying to create a facility dedicated to climate finance within the DBSA, targeting South Africa, Namibia, Eswatini, and which used to be called Swaziland, and Lesotho. And GCF has committed $56 million in the form of concessional loans and grants. And this facility, as you can see from the name, is dedicated only to finance climate change projects in those 4 countries. And we'll be partnering with, again, DBSA, as well as other institutions to provide the concessional loans to climate change projects. We are trying to finalize the legal documentation with DBSA as we speak, and we hope to launch this program as soon as possible. And I thank Patrick for all the cooperations that you have provided so far. And there is another project with the African Development Bank. This is a private sector project targeting Congo, which aims to support the mini-grid projects in the country in the form of senior loans and grants, and we will be providing around USD 20 million to do that. And this is an impact fund we are trying to set up with Acumen, which is based in New York, and they are targeting Uganda, Ghana, Nigeria, and by providing around $26 million. Again, this is an agricultural project in those 3 countries. So Acumen will set up a funding vehicle where GCF will be investing in, and they'll provide equity for the agricultural projects in those 3 countries. And there is a renewable energy framework in Egypt with the EBRD, where GCF is providing about $155 million in the form of loans and grants. And this is a program whereby rather than submitting individual renewable energy project to the GCF just basically dedicating this much of an amount and with a very clear eligibility criteria. So as long as the projects meet the eligibility criteria, EBRD doesn't have to submit the individual projects to the GCF because they already have our pre-approved commitment, and they can simply draw down the funding from the commitment to finance individual projects. And this is a public sector project in Mali with the BWAD, which is another member of IDFC. And this targets the solar projects for rural electrification in the country. We have another project with the BWAD, which is a private sector transaction. And this targets the 6 the least developed countries, the Francophone countries in the regions to finance solar PV projects. I forgot to include one of the most important projects with the IFD because at the time of preparing the presentation, we wanted to keep the balance and wanted to show you diverse examples of the projects. So with IFD, we actually signed the funded activity agreement yesterday. And IFD, alongside the GCF, with financial institutions, and to support both mitigation and adaptation projects. And one of the key merits of this program with IFD is that 40% of this program is expected to support adaptation projects in those countries, which could be very paradigm shifting and transformative in many aspects. So with that, I'll stop my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.